Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. One of the most frequent types of questions I get has to do with what year it is for the ship. People will send me pictures or models or other things depicting the ship, and they'll ask, when is this? We've previously done a series of videos where we talked about how you can tell the different Iowas apart. For this video, we're going to talk about how you can tell what year it is on Battleship New Jersey. This is just going to be some high-level stuff. We're not going to go into every single detail, but it'll at least allow you to narrow down when a ship is being depicted in paintings, in photographs, in models of the ship. So, first off, does the ship have 20mm guns? If it has 20mm guns, it is almost certainly World War II. Within about a year of the ship being reactivated for the Korean War, the last couple of 20mm mounts were removed. During her first Korean deployment, she carried just 32 20mm mounts in 16 twin mounts. During World War II, they were almost exclusively single mounts. Although in the last year of World War II, they added 8 twin mounts. So if you can see 20mm guns, that probably means it's World War II. The locations of some of the 20mm guns, particularly on the bow, will help you determine whether it's really early after the ship has been reactivated or later on during the war. If there is no pulpit at the bow, which is a platform up there where there's 2 20mm guns, then it is like right after the ship is reactivated. By the time she actually finishes shakedowns and training and does a combat deployment, the anti-aircraft configuration has been changed and extra guns have been added there. Likewise, a little bit behind these capstans here would have been a pair of 20mm guns that were added later on. Behind me on the deck, you might be able to see the gun tubs for the 40mm guns. Those were added at the same time that the 20mm mounts were changed. Originally, there was like this weird triangular position there amidships that would have had 5 single 20mm mounts in it. Those get repositioned to these other gun tubs up forward I've been talking about, and they add those extra gun tubs for the 40mm guns. So if you can count 20 mounts for 40mm guns, that means that it is probably 1944. Another indicator, you've got these 2 tubs on the bow. If you see them, it's after she's actually deployed. She's no longer doing training here in the Delaware River or the off the coast of Virginia and the Chesapeake Bay. There are 2 more gun mounts on the main deck on either side of the superstructure. Those 40mm replace the 20mm gun tub around the same time as this work is done on the bow. So that increases the anti-aircraft firepower before the ship deploys to the Pacific. Likewise, if there is no enclosed bridge, it's the same time period. If there's just an open catwalk around the bridge, there's no big square bridge windows, really early on. Right around when the New Jersey deploys to the Pacific, she's painted in all dark blue, so she will show up really dark in the photography. There is a round bridge structure installed around the bridge, around the forward face of the conning tower, that has square windows in it, so that lets you know that it's 44 or early 45. And again, we've got all the 40mm mounts and all the 20mm mounts like we'll have for the rest of World War II. She's in this configuration for most of the war. She doesn't receive any major updates. There are some changes to the electronics during this time period, but it's all done pretty much while the ship is forward deployed. In 1945, I want to say summer 45, around June, the ship goes back to Puget Sound for a major overhaul. At that time, her round bridge is replaced with a square bridge. The twin 20mm mounts are installed in 8 different locations around the ship. They just replace single mounts with twin mounts. And the ship receives a different camouflage scheme. So before, the whole ship was painted dark blue. At this point, everything above the main deck is painted light gray, and everything below the main deck is painted dark blue. So the dark blue scheme is measured 21, the mixed scheme is measured 22. She's in this scheme throughout the rest of 1945. Not too long after the war, the ship is repainted in her peacetime haze gray camouflage. And she will remain in that color scheme until she's decommissioned again. When she's reactivated in 1950, there are a small number of changes. This includes the removal of the catapults for the float planes and the removal of many of the 20mm guns. She also has that light gray camouflage scheme. Around 1955, the battleship's mast is considerably changed. She's originally built with a single pole main mast that is at the back face of the aft funnel. Because of the new electronics added in 1945, that is turned into a tripod that just has some supports built into it, and all of those tripod posts come back in and attach to the aft face of the smokestack, the aft stack. In 1955, she's updated again, this time with a quadrupedal mast, and the back legs of the mast come down and actually attach to the deck. So the forward two legs attached to the stack, the back two legs attached to the deck. She gets a height-finding radar, a little bit bigger radar, mounted on the mast at that time. So at that point, you know it is post-Korean War. She will continue to look like that until she's deactivated. When she's reactivated for Vietnam, you get some major changes. First off, all the 40mm guns are removed. However, some of the gun tubs are retained, and this helps you date it when in 1967, 68, or 69 it is. By the time the ship deploys for Vietnam, most of the gun tubs have been cut off. But while she's still reactivating and undergoing trials, gun tubs, like the ones behind me at the bow, are still there, although the guns have been removed. They're not cut off until the ship goes to Long Beach and is just about to deploy. Likewise, in Long Beach, the two antennas right above the bridge on the forward face of the superstructure are installed. 1968 is also when she gets that unique superstructure addition where the O10 level, 10 stories above, gets that T shape that comes out where the electronic countermeasures are. A final major indicator in 1968 is the disc cone cage antenna that's added to the bow. When the ship is reactivated in 1982, you get some serious updates. The main mast is cut away entirely, the one on the aft funnel, and the foremast, the one on the forward superstructure, goes from being a monopod pole mast to being a tripod with a big flat platform on top for the ship's new air and surface search radars. If you see this tripod, like enclosed cage mast lattice type structure, you know it is the 1980s. Although there are some really cheapo models out there that have that sort of mast combined with 40mm guns and other like really weird things. Just avoid those models. Likewise, the electronic countermeasures, which had been whiskers sticking out of the O10 level, are cut off, and new electronic countermeasures, the Slick 32s, are put on top of the O11 level of the superstructure. They're just like these little box things. The ship gets her phalanx close-in weapon systems, the white domed Gatling guns, and of course all the missile systems installed. And that's when the number of 5-inch guns is reduced from 5 twin mounts on each side to 3 twin mounts on each side. Those extra gun mounts are removed to create the flat platforms for the missiles to go on. So if you see those missiles, if you see those platforms, if you see those reduced 5-inch gun mounts, you know that that is the ship's 1980s configuration. We're looking at the fantail of the ship. The 1980s is when the aviation crane is removed and the ship goes from having just like a rubberized flight deck to having a full-on steel flight deck with a lot of the back deck covered in rubber for the helicopters and boats to roll around on. The final major update in the ship's career happened sometime between 1986 and 1988. The ship has an RPV drone installed, and that is noticeable because the mast on the forward face of the aft stack that had been added there in the 80s is chopped off, and this big round dome is installed on top of that. If you can see that dome, that is the ship in her final configuration just before decommissioning. So, Again, there are a ton of other smaller changes, but the really big things you want to look for. Check out how many anti-aircraft guns she has. That really helps you date her pretty closely to the year during World War II and into the 1950s. When the mast changes on the aft stack, that really helps you from around 1945 into the 1950s tell what year it is. The disc cone cage antenna and the forward superstructure changes help narrow it down to Vietnam, and the tripod mast and missile systems really help narrow it down to the 1980s and 90s. So which of those features do you find the most identifiable? Was it one in our list, or was it something we didn't mention in this video? Let us know in the comments section down below, and let everybody else know what some of the other ways you can tell the difference are. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to continue donating to support the museum. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about us and our channel. Thanks for watching.